Hello, everyone. It's windy, so I know it's getting ready to rain. We're dealing with eugenics. Eugenics is back. That is the course. And we're using the medical apartheid as our text. It's a lot of madness going on in the world again, as usual. And I just gotta keep teaching these lessons and offering these things. Very excited because I found a new website, PayHip. I'll put it in the description where I'm selling my scripts. A lot of scripts for TV series I'm selling, and I'm offering courses. So they let you offer courses like Udemy does, and I'm offering them on PayHip. Go check that out. The Mississippi appendectomy, that's the section. The pill may have been flawed and IUD deadly, but these methods were at least quasi-voluntary and their effects were usually temporary. The most damaging threat to African American reproductive freedom has been invasive and permanent. Compulsory surgical sterilization. When the infamous German eugenic sterilization initiative began in January 1934, 17 U.S. states were already performing sterilizations routinely, and that year between 2,000 and 4,000 Americans were sterilized. Indiana passed legislation requiring the sterilization of the mentally unfit in 1907. By 1911, 6 states had passed laws providing for compulsory sterilization of the mentally unfit. In 1935, 27 states had such laws for the feeble-minded, those on welfare, or those with genetic defects. Forced sterilization was encouraged by the infamous 1927 Buck v. Bell decision, wherein Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes ordered the sterilization of the allegedly imbecilic poor white girl, Carrie Buck, intoning, "3 generations of imbeciles are enough." By the 1930s, compulsory sterilization had become a global enterprise, and by 1941, sterilization had been forced upon 70,000 to 100,000 Americans, 9,931 of them in California alone. We have no idea who's being sterilized today. We just don't. They could be doing all kinds of things to you. We're also probably going to start seeing people asking, do you want people sterilized? For instance, let's say you have an autistic child, and the parent might say, well, I don't know, my son or my daughter can't really take care of a child. What if my son gets a girl pregnant? What if my daughter gets pregnant by somebody that's nefarious or somebody else with autism on the spectrum? We can go down this path. So this is very dangerous, the moment that we're in. And we need to understand this, to understand what's getting ready to happen. Poor people, quote unquote, feeble-minded people, what does that mean? What if you're an addict and you can't kick the habit? No matter what they did, they try to put you in rehab, and do you get sterilized? We're in a moment where any of this can be proposed, and if I know the masses of us, we might all co-sign this, or at least a majority of us may co-sign this. I know many people that will tell you, hey man, I don't know, man, that person, the mama was no good, the grandmama was no good. It's just what the black community calls generational curse. I don't know if we made that up. It wasn't around when I was a child, but that's what they call it now. So we have to be careful, or at least know what we're going into. You may agree with eugenics. African Americans have always been staggeringly overrepresented in the ranks of sterilization. When the North Carolina Eugenics Commission sterilization 8,000 mentally retarded persons throughout the 1930s, 5,000 were black. By 1983, when blacks constituted only 12% of the population, 43% of the women sterilized in federally funded family planning programs were African American. This is 1983. I was about 12, 13 at this point. This is what we're talking about. It's my lifetime. So I'm pretty sure they're still doing it. This has been achieved under the auspices of a government fed by the myth of the lazy, hyper-fertile welfare mother. Say welfare mother, they used to say welfare queens. And most people think of an unemployed black woman, yet most women on welfare are not black. A 1990 survey revealed that 78% of whites think blacks prefer welfare to employment. But most black women are employed full-time and hold at least one job. And women on welfare are likely to be employed part-time at low-wage jobs with few, if any, benefits. However, a black woman is more likely to receive AFDC, aid to dependent children, the form of public assistance given to people with minor children, than is a white woman. Black women constitute 6% of the population, but represent 1/3 of those on AFDC. And in some poor urban areas, such as Baltimore, which is 86% black, the majority of people on welfare are also black. Well, that makes sense. Everybody's going to be on some kind of, well, first of all, the government gives money to everybody. The government gives money to Target, the government gives money to Walmart, the government gives money to Amazon. So this whole idea of welfare, corporate welfare. Corporate welfare is the biggest welfare on the planet, in the United States. So everybody's on welfare. This whole country's on welfare. And I learned this mostly in 2008 when the collapse happened. I always thought businesses like Target and all these businesses were paying their employees with the money they made. No, they don't make profit. They pay their employees with credit lines. And they told Obama he had to bail out the banks because they had no credit line to pay any of their employees. So everybody's on welfare from one way or another. Forced sterilization and welfare have been linked to nearly half a century. Mississippi State Legislature David H. Glass instituted a bold experiment when he sought legal means to force sterilization upon welfare mothers in 1958. By 1960, his act to discourage immortality or unmarried females from providing for sterilization of the unwed mothers passed in the House by a vote of 72 to 37, but died in the Senate as the Black Activist Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, protested and distributed a pamphlet entitled Genocide in Mississippi. But most sterilizations of poor black women have been performed outside of the law and in violation of medical mores. In June 1973, the abuse of two young sisters in Montgomery, Alabama exposed the decades of stolen African American fertility. 12-year-old Mary Alice Ralph and her sister Minnie, 14, lived on relief with their parents, who had left their meager living as field hands, that's what slaves, in an unsuccessful search for work in the city. And they owed them that, because we never got the money from slavery, from the reparations for what was done to us. A Montgomery Community Action Agency nurse took the girls to the hospital for a federally funded contraceptive shot, obtained the X of each illiterate parent on the consent form. But their parents later learned that the girls had been surgically sterilized, and they asked Atlanta's Southern Poverty Law Center to help. When SPLC filed a class action lawsuit to end the use of federal funding for involuntary sterilization, its lawyers discovered that 100,000 to 150,000 women have been sterilized using federal funds, and that half these women were black. Today, one third of all adult Mississippi women and 57% of all Mississippi women 65 and older say they have undergone hysterectomies. Now, recently, there's been a lot of things with fibroids and tumors, and a lot of women and a lot of black women were getting hysterectomies. So, again, it's 2025 and this stuff is still happening because the fibroids cause a lot of pain and suffering. Involuntary hysterectomies were also commonly practiced in the North. A 1973 study by Bernard Rosenfeld of the Los Angeles Hospital discovered the doctors are cavalierly subjecting women, most of them poor and black, to surgical sterilization without explaining either the potential hazards or alternative methods of birth control. In most major teaching hospitals of New York, it was the unwritten policy to do elective hysterectomies on poor black and Puerto Rican women with minimal indications to train residents. In 1972, medical students at Boston City Hospital protested the policy of performing unnecessary hysterectomies on black women in order to allow residents to practice. The students also complained that experimental procedures, the coercion of patient signatures, and falsifying medical records were common practice among black patients. So did students at Columbia University. The chairman of the BCH OBGYN program did not deny the charges, but blamed one bad apple. Tell you, you have no idea what these hospitals are doing. I mean, now, I was speaking to one of my elders today. Now your medical records are kind of digital and you get access to them. So I think I do like that, so we can actually see when we take a test, it comes to our phones, our devices, and we could see it too. I think that's a good thing. We don't always know what we're looking at, but then you get a written report of what it says. But you have to trust that that is what it is. But at least you have a record of it. Now, if you can't read, then that might be a problem, right? And sometimes if you're ashamed of that, you might let doctors get away with things, but not asking questions about things. But if you feel a certain way, whether you can read or understand what the doctor's saying, you should always, always, always ask questions. I don't care how dumb you may think that question is, ask it. Because you never know. And like I said, these people who work for hospitals and doctors and work for doctors' offices, they work for paychecks. They don't work to heal you at all. That's not what they did. They don't care about your health. None of them. Care how nice they are. None of them. Okay? Across the nation, black women who trusted obstetricians to deliver their children were being surreptitiously sterilized. And this revelation poisoned relationships between them and their doctors. To accomplish the sterilizations, practitioners lied to patients, forged consent forms, or falsified medical records to reflect an appendectomy or gallbladder removal. So it is now impossible to know the exact number of African American women who were sterilized without their knowledge. Nor is there any record of how many such hysterectomies, if any, were medically justified. Some women, like Fannie Lou Hamer, were never told by their doctor that they had been sterilized, and others never found out. One of the few methodical surveys conducted revealed that at least 60% of the black women in Hamer's native Sunflower County, Mississippi, unwittingly suffered postpartum hysterectomies. So, have a baby and then they sterilize you after that. Sometimes they sterilize you before you even have a baby. How many women suffered thinking that they just couldn't have babies? They didn't know that they were sterilized. They're just thinking, I can't get pregnant. struggling husbands that didn't know, relationships broken up because his wife couldn't give him a baby, the stress from that. I mean, the psychological damage done on black people and poor people and people in this society, the psychological operations that's done on us, the psychological destruction and brutality that's done to us is amazing. That's why I went back and studied psychology in school. And once I studied one class, the first class I took, I went on to go on and even enter a master's program. But the first class I took, I said, oh, okay, yeah, we're all insane because this society is insane. And then once you learn all the psychological terminology or concepts, I should say, you really start to understand, yeah, this is done by design. And I think it's backfired, but that's what's being done. So you have people being sterilized, you have people being brutalized psychologically, and I think today what you're going to start getting is people volunteering to be sterilized. Can't afford children, might as well get sterilized. Especially now they're trying to make abortions illegal and stuff like that. You watch. It's going to be a lot. Keep your eyes open. Keep your ears open. Use this information for your life. And take care of yourselves and be safe.